Good morning, Year 7. Today I would like to spend some time just having a look at our next assessment task and what the requirements for that task are. I'm going to start by just showing you where to find the task. So I'm just on our Darrenet homepage here. You can see our schedule for week 13 up the top. Just over to the right of the page, we have already done the short story and rationale, and now we're moving on to task 2, our oral presentation. So if we just click onto that, it will take us to a new page, and you'll see 3 documents there. Okay, the 3 documents are the actual task sheet, and then the task instruction sheet are the ones that you want to have a look at first, and then this here, the task rubric, so how you will be marked on the task. I'm just going to go straight to the task instruction sheet because I think that's the most practical way of looking at this for today. So I'll just open that up. So I've just opened that up here on a Word document, and you can see right at the top it says what the task is. It's an oral presentation. Now obviously being away from school, this is going to be a little bit more difficult, and the idea was that we were going to have these presentations taking place in week 16 in our classes, so that's another couple of weeks away. But what we're going to do instead is we're going to have the presentations filmed on your webcams, and then you're going to submit a video file of that, alright? But I'll speak to you about this throughout the next couple of weeks and give you some ideas about how you're going to do that. You don't need to worry about the presentation side at this stage. You just need to get a good understanding of what the task is asking you to do. So, what is the task asking us to do? It's looking at the topic that we're looking at the moment, culture. And the focus of the task is to explore the ways in which different text types can shape our understanding of culture. Now, when we talk about text types, we're talking about a range of things. Okay, these could be books, these could be newspaper articles, these could be pictures or posters, these could be any sort of text that is portraying a message. Okay, and what we're looking for is that how different cultures use these different types of texts to portray cultural identity, and what is the message or the purpose of these text types, and who are they trying to target themselves towards, their audience. I've already touched on this will be handed in week 16. I'd like to see a bit of an update of where you're at in week 15, so that's another couple of weeks away. I'm just going to go through the steps of the task. Now, the first step of the task is for you to choose a culture. Alright, so we're going to be ideally looking at another culture other than Australia, but if you want to look at Australia, that's also cool. I've also just suggested that looking at another culture might be a good option, as you might already know a fair bit about Australia. It might be nice to learn something about a different culture. For example, if you've of a different cultural background, or if you have got an interest in travelling somewhere, or you've really seen somewhere that you'd like to go and have a look at one day, I would encourage you to think about whereabouts that place might be. But that's the first step, is choosing a culture. So we're choosing a country or a culture that sort of tells us or that we want to find out a little bit of info about. Now, what we're trying to do with our assignment task is we're looking at how the language in this culture, or how they use these different text types to give us some information about that particular culture. So the different text types that we've got to choose from are the list here, but also it says right at the top, you must use one text type and one object/image in your presentation. So when you're giving your speech about your chosen culture, what you're talking about is you're using an example of a poem, a song, a myth or a legend, a novel or a play, a newspaper article, a cartoon, or another object in consultation with your teacher. So that just means if you come across something, please ask me, and I'll be happily explain if that's a good one, or if you might like to choose something else. So they're the different types of text that you're going to try and explore within your task. And then you're looking at objects as well. So food, a painting, a sculpture, clothing, or another object in consultation with myself. So the idea is that you're looking at two different things that give a good summary of your chosen culture. So for example, there might be a song that's really important to the Indian people, all right? And what we're going to be looking at, or you're going to be looking at in your task, is you're going to be looking at the reasons why that song is so important. What sort of cultural meaning does it give to the people of that country? And then along with that, you're going to be looking at some food items from that particular culture as well. So I know myself, Indian cuisine is one of my favourites. A biryani is really a culturally significant dish to the Indian people. So we're going to be looking at that food, and then we're going to be looking at why that's important. Now, we are going to be back at school during this time, so my idea is that we're going to, if people want to do some food type items for their culture, we could have a bit of a class party and we bring in some different foods from around the world, looking at the different cultures, and then those people will give us some information about those particular foods at that time. Other options, as I said, are painting, sculpture, clothing, or any other object that you find interesting. So your job in this task, once you've chosen those couple of things, is to create a bit of a presentation on those things and that culture. So in your presentation, you would start off by introducing your chosen culture, explain why it has special significance for you or why you find it interesting. So that might be somewhere that you like to go, it might be a link to the family, something like that. You could also discuss some stereotypical perceptions of this culture. So what that means is stereotypical, meaning that what is the perceived, or what are the perceptions of this culture from the wider community. Okay, so for example, Australians, the stereotypical Australian is somebody who's laid back, a bit of a larrikin, those type of things. Okay, that's a bit of a stereotype. So what are the stereotypes of your chosen culture? Those are things that you might like to discuss in the introduction. Then you're going to present the text that you've chosen to the class. So you need to talk about the subject matter in the text, what are the facts the text reveals to us about the culture, and some of the ideas and messages that are presented about the culture within that text. So those texts were, remember, songs, poems. They could be a short story, a myth, or a legend, or anything else that has some sort of cultural message or significance to your chosen culture. All right, so they're the 3 points that you're going to be kind of giving us a bit of an overview of in your presentation. We've got here in big capital letters, you must use specific examples, including quotations from your text to support your ideas. Okay, so you can't just say, for example, I've chosen a poem from the US and I'm just making up some ideas about this poem, about why it's culturally significant, because it mentions the colour red, it mentions the colour blue, and it also mentions stars and stripes because that's in the American flag. It doesn't actually say that anywhere, but I'm just making that up. That wouldn't be a good example about why it's specifically important to that culture. All right, you need to have some actual evidence to support what you're saying. Okay, you can't just make things up and just pretend that it's important to this culture. You've got to make it realistic and make it your argument that you're saying strong. All right. You need to present your object to the class and explain how it enhances our understanding of the culture. All right, so that's a key point. So how does this particular food or how does this particular painting give us an insight or understanding of that culture? And then finishing off your presentation by discussing the ways in which your understanding of this culture has been developed or changed. So that's just more of a reflection, thinking about what have you learnt through the process of this. All right, so really there's 4 steps to the process of creating your speech. Once, introducing the culture, why it's significant, discussing the text that you've chosen, discussing the food that you've chosen, and then finishing with what you have learned from the process and how you have developed your understanding of this culture over the time that you've had a look at it. So, I'm just going to leave that with you for now. What I want you to do today is I want you to give us a bit of a summary, or give me a summary of what this assignment is asking you to do. Okay, and all I want is probably 4 or 5 sentences about what is this task all about. All right, answer that question in 4 or 5 sentences. What is this task asking you to do? So giving me a bit of a summary of what the task is. All right, so that's your job for today, is to have a read over this document and make sure you've got a good understanding of what the task is asking you to do. And then have a bit of a written summary, and then I'll review those to make sure that everyone's on the right track and we'll be ready to get going with the task. All right. So I don't want anyone to be stressing about this. It's not due for another little while, but I do want to make you aware of it and make sure that you understand what you have to do. Okay. So that's today's job. I'll check in with you guys tomorrow, and I'll be organising a Teams catch up for tomorrow. So I'll chat to you guys then. Take care. Bye.